The scream came first, then the heavy silence that follows a curse. At the foot of the sweeping marble staircase in the Harper mansion, a frail, gray-haired woman stood with dusty slippers and a wrapper tied over a faded blouse. Her walking stick shook. Her voice did not. "Security," she said, pointing. "Remove that girl from my son's house." Cierra froze. Her lipstick felt bitter on her tongue. This couldn't be real. Just 15 minutes earlier she had kicked this same woman in the open-air market at Oak Aaron, brushed her aside like a stray dog because the woman had blocked her path and grabbed her wrist to warn her about something. The memory still burned. The quick, cruel snap of her shoe, the old woman collapsing on a wooden stall, oranges rolling like marbles, people gasping, Cierra tossing a few sharp words as she hurried for her ride. She had been on her way to meet her fiancé's mother for the first time. She wanted to arrive early, polished, powerful. She wanted to look like she belonged. Now the old woman stood at the center of a chandelier-lit foyer the size of a church, guards stepping forward, and Cierra felt her chest go tight. On the balcony above, portraits in gold frames watched the drama. A fountain murmured in the courtyard beyond. Everything in the mansion whispered money, quiet, rules. "Ma'am," Cierra managed, her voice tiny, "there's a mistake." The woman's eyes, the same sharp brown as Cierra had seen in the market, did not soften. "The only mistake is thinking manners can be bought." The butler, Mr. Glover, tall with ironed edges, hovered like a sober shadow waiting for instructions. The guards and navy stood ready. A housekeeper paused mid-step on gleaming tiles, clutching a basket of folded napkins. A door clicked open at the far end of the hall. Jordan Harper, Cierra's fiancé, strode in with the briskness of a man who had never needed to rush. He wore a charcoal suit, shirt open at the collar, confidence quiet in his stride. Nigerian father, African-American mother, tech entrepreneur, boyish smile that had changed her life the night he sat beside her on a flight and asked if she liked plantain chips. He spotted Cierra and brightened, then saw his mother's face and slowed. "Mom?" Jordan said carefully. "What's going on?" Cierra expected relief to wash through her. It didn't. His mother, this poor dusty woman from the market, turned to him and opened her hands. "She assaulted me," the woman said, calm like ice. "In public. She looked me in the eye and kicked me." Jordan's gaze snapped to Cierra. The pause cut deeper than any shout. "That's not possible," he said, but the question was already in his eyes. Cierra lifted her chin. "Jordan, I didn't know, I was rushing a crowd." "Were you at Oak Aaron?" his mother asked. "Were you wearing those shoes?" She pointed at the pointed heels with the silver buckle. The heels still held a faint smudge of market dust Cierra hadn't noticed. Cierra swallowed. Her mind scrambled for a better version of the truth, a smoother edge to rest on. She found none. "Yes," she said faintly. "I was late. There were traitors everywhere. Someone grabbed me and I reacted." "You reacted by striking an elder," the woman said. "And when the oranges fell you didn't help pick one. Not one." A murmur moved through the staff like wind through grass. The housekeeper stared at Cierra's shoes, then at her own worn flats. Mr. Glover's eyelids fluttered once, a private flinch. "Mom," Jordan said, rubbing his jaw, "let's slow down." "You asked me to come home," she answered, "to meet the woman you want to marry. I came home early. I dressed like this," she touched her wrapper, "because I wanted to see her heart before she saw my name." Jordan let out a long breath. It was the breath of a son trying not to choose sides, the breath of a man who had always believed he could keep peace with gifts and gentleness. He turned to Cierra. "Tell me exactly what happened." Cierra could feel the foyer watching, portraits, staff, even the fountain. She thought of her mother's small salon back in Surrelier, of the years sweeping hair off tiled floors, of the vow she made when she first met Jordan. Never again small. Never again ignored. She had taught herself to walk fast in crowded places. She had taught herself not to say sorry unless it saved time. In the market, the old woman had grabbed her wrist. Cierra's body had answered before her mouth did. "I'd slept 2 hours," she said, voice softer. "I had your favorite palm print dress altered. I wanted to make a good impression. The road was blocked. Some men were pushing a cart. I tried to pass through. Then someone held my wrist. I panicked. I kicked. I said something rude. I shouldn't have. I kept going because I was late." The old woman's mouth twisted, not with anger now but with something heavier. "Rude words wash off," she said. "Character stains." Jordan looked at the heel of Cierra's shoe, then into her face. "You didn't recognize her," he said. It was not a question. "No," Cierra whispered. "Would it have mattered?" his mother asked. If I were a nobody, would your foot have been kinder? Sierra's cheeks burned. I would never hurt your family. You hurt mine, the woman replied, before you even knew my name. The silence stretched until one of the guards shifted his weight and the leather squeaked. Outside, a generator coughed to life and the lights flickered, then steadied. Somewhere in the back of the house, a blender hummed and stopped. Escort Miss Jacobs to the guest parlor, the mother said to the butler. Not the main one. The small one near the staff entrance. Mother, Jordan said sharper than before. She will sit there, the woman added, and decide if she wants to be the kind of woman this family can call daughter. Because marriage to my son does not buy you a new heart. Sierra felt her hands tremble. She pressed them together to stop it. The guest parlor by the staff entrance? It was polite exile. She looked at Jordan, reaching for the easy half-smile they always found in hard moments. He didn't return it. Mom, he said quietly, I asked both of you here to break good news. Then let us test if it can survive truth, his mother said. Mr. Glover gestured. Sierra took one step and stopped. Something inside her refused to move on command in a house that might soon ban her. She turned back to the woman. I was wrong, Sierra said, her voice steadying. I'm sorry. It was pride and hurry. I'm sorry for the pain and the disrespect. But please don't define me by my worst second in a crowded market. The old woman studied her. She had the same sharp gaze Jordan used when he was making a deal he didn't trust. Words, the mother said, cost less than oranges. Let me earn your forgiveness, Sierra said. Let me make it right. How? The mother's eyebrow lifted. Will you go back and pick every fruit you scattered? If that is what it takes, Sierra said. I'll go now. Jordan blinked, surprised. Now? Yes, Sierra said. And I'll find the stall owner. I'll pay for the damages. I'll serve her for the afternoon. Oh. You will do theatrics, the woman cut in. Public sorrow. Private pride. I'll do quiet work, Sierra said. No cameras. No staff. Just me and the woman I hurt. The butler's expression almost changed. Almost. Jordan rubbed his temple. Mom? Sierra, can we please not? A phone buzzed in the mother's wrapper. She pulled it out with slow fingers and read. Her face tightened. She lifted her eyes to Sierra, then to Jordan. The market woman collapsed after you left, she said. Someone took her to a clinic behind the bus park. Her granddaughter called me. Sierra's stomach dropped. Is she? Alive, the mother said. But she needs help. I'll go, Sierra said quickly. I'll pay the bills. Oh. You'll go, the woman agreed, but not to buy me. To meet the truth you kicked aside. Jordan's shoulders sagged. I'll drive. His mother shook her head. No. She goes alone. Mom, Jordan protested, a warning in his tone. She goes alone, the woman repeated, because there are roads you cannot walk for her, even if you marry her. If she cannot walk this one now, she is not ready to share your name. Sierra looked at Jordan. The distance between them was only 5 steps and a lifetime of pride. She wanted him to fight for her, to pull rank in his own house, to say, she comes with me and that is final. Instead, he gave her the same look he'd given the first time they met, curious, measuring, hopeful. I'll go, Sierra said. Tell me the clinic. The mother nodded to Mr. Glover, who scribbled an address on a clean card with measured strokes. Sierra took it. Her hands had steadied, her heart had not. As she turned to leave, the mother spoke again, not unkindly but with iron. Understand me, Miss Jacobs. I am not a queen hoarding a throne. I am a mother guarding a door. My son's life is not a prize. It is a garden. If you trample the weakest plant, you cannot live here. Sierra met the woman's eyes. Then I'll start with the plant I crushed, she said. Maybe I can help it stand. The housekeeper shifted, as if a secret battle inside her ended with a small nod. Mr. Glover opened the door. Afternoon heat flooded the foyer, carrying market dust and the faraway buzz of hawkers that had no respect for mansions or mistakes. Sierra stepped into the light. She felt the story she had told herself. Smart girl lifts her family, marries the good man, earns the good life, crack and rearrange. Behind her, the mother's voice floated across the marble one last time. If you come back, she said, come back different. The door shut softly and the sound was louder than a slam. Sierra stood on the steps, card in hand, heart hammering, car keys biting her palm. She stared out at the long sunlit driveway, at the gate that shimmered like the edge of two worlds. Then her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. A photo flashed on her screen, the market woman on a clinic bed, eyes closed, and 4 taped to her arm, and beside the bed, a little girl in a torn yellow dress clutching a basket of fallen oranges as if they were all that was left. The message read, "Please help us." Cierra drew a breath like a swimmer before a deep dive, turned toward her car and ran, straight into a black SUV screeching to a halt at the curb, its door already opening, a figure inside calling her name with urgency that sounded too much like trouble. The black SUV fishtailed to a stop beside the steps, heat shimmering above its hood. The back door swung open before Cierra could move. "Cierra, get in." The voice was low, rushed. Zeke, Jordan's head of security, leaned out, earpiece glinting against his buzz cut. An African-American man in his 30s, precise like a stopwatch. "Mrs. Harper said you should go alone. I know, but the clinic is a circus right now. Someone posted a video from the market. It's already trending. Hashtags, think pieces, people calling you heartless. Let me get you in and out without cameras." Cierra's throat went dry. "A video?" Zeke nodded once. "Side angle from a phone. It shows the oranges hit the ground, you stepping over them. Conveniently, it doesn't show what made you panic. The post tagged Jordan, the company, the foundation. It's messy." The world tilted by a few degrees. In her hand, the clinic address card suddenly felt heavier. She could already hear the comments. "She's not ready for that, family." Money made her proud. The worst second of her day multiplied into a brand. "I can't arrive in your car," she said, forcing breath into her voice. "Mrs. Harper told me to walk this road myself." Zeke's expression flickered, something almost like sympathy passing over his features. "Then take this." He offered a plain envelope. "Cash for the deposit. Clinics behind bus parks want cash. And wear this." He held out a light blue disposable mask. "At least hide your face from the first lens that finds you." Cierra took the mask, then hesitated at the envelope. "I have my card." "The POS will be not working the moment they see a chance to trend," Zeke said dryly. "It's Lagos and it's everywhere. Human nature doesn't care about city names." She slid the envelope into her tote. "Thank you." Zeke leaned closer. "One more thing. Don't say too much. People will try to bait you into a soundbite. They want a villain or a victim. Don't be either." He closed the door. The SUV pulled away. Cierra jogged to her car, hands still steady, heart still not. As she drove down the looping driveway, she kept seeing Jordan's face in the foyer, his belief looking for a place to sit. She gripped the wheel tighter, turned left at the gate, and merged into traffic that hummed like a hive. The road to the clinic behind the bus park tightened into lanes of improvised commerce. Hawkers threading between cars with chilled water, phone chargers, groundnuts. A boy tapping mirrors with torchlight filters. A woman balancing akara in a tray, sizzling smell clouding the heat. Cierra parked 2 streets away and walked the rest, mask on, head low, envelope tucked beneath her dress along her thigh like contraband. The clinic was painted the color of salt, the kind of white that fought daily with dust. A hand-lettered sign over the door read, "New Dawn Community Care." The waiting area was a bright square of plastic chairs and tired fans. A nurse in a scrub top patterned with tiny stethoscopes sat behind a metal desk, flipping through patient cards with the speed of someone who could read pain like weather. Then Cierra saw the little girl from the photo, the one in the torn yellow dress, standing in the doorway of a tiny ward, clutching a basket now half filled with bruised oranges and heartbreak. "You came," the girl said as if she had not truly believed it. Her eyes were wide and careful. "Grandma said maybe you wouldn't." "I came," Cierra said softly. "Where is she?" The girl led her to a bed by the window. The woman lying there was wiry, with sharp cheekbones and a headscarf tied at an angle that said she had once tied it standing up, not lying down. A drip line ran into her arm. Her breathing was shallow but regular. "Her name is Mama Kemi," the nurse said, appearing with a clipboard. She fainted. Blood pressure dropped. She also sprained her wrist when she fell. "We did basic tests. We need to do more." Cierra reached for the envelope. "What's the deposit?" $250, the nurse replied. "If the tests show more, we'll talk." Cierra slid the cash across the desk. The nurse gave her a quick, searching look, recognition warring with professionalism. "Thank you," she said and moved. At the bed, the little girl stood straight, chin set the way kids set their chins when they refuse to cry. "I'm Amaka," she said. "I sent the message. Grandma doesn't have a phone. The number I used is Auntie Blessings. She's the nurse. She helped me." "Thank you, Amaka," Cierra said. I know," the girl said, a child's honesty cutting through the adult fog. People at the bus park were watching their phones. They said you're the lady from the video. She studied Cierra's face above the mask, as if looking for the shape of a monster and finding only a person. Are you a bad person? The question landed like a weight. Cierra crouched to be level. I was bad in the market, she said. I made a bad choice. But I want to do better now. Is that allowed? Amaka hesitated, then nodded. Grandma says anybody can carry water and anybody can spill it. The difference is who picks up the bucket after. The nurse returned, adjusting the four. Her pressure is stabilizing, she said. We'll take her in for scans. You can wait outside. Cierra looked at the floor. Orange juice had dried sticky on the tiles near the doorway, a faint map of the fall. Without thinking, she found a bucket and a rag by the sink, poured in disinfectant and knelt. She wiped the floor in slow circles. Amaka watched, then copied small strokes with a second rag, the basket set aside. In the corridor, two women in wrappers slowed, staring, one with pity, one with judgment. That's her, whispered one. The one who kicked Mama Kemi's friend. See how human beings change when camera touches them, the other murmured. Cierra kept wiping. She had no camera, only a small square of sticky floor and a girl beside her keeping steady rhythm. When they finished, the tiles shone. Amaka wrung her rag with solemn ceremony. I'll buy you new oranges, Cierra said. Amaka shook her head. Grandma says we don't eat from tears. We sell then we eat. That's the pride. Then I'll buy, Cierra said. And you'll sell back to me. She reached into her tote, found her wallet and counted notes. But first eat something. Your hands are shaking. Amaka looked at the notes as if they might turn into something else in the air. Okay, she whispered. Cierra sent her to the kiosk outside with a list. Rice, beans, a bottle of malt, a piece of fried fish if the woman would reduce price for a child. While Amaka ran, light on her feet, an older woman with a basket of lotions and soap approached, suspicion tight in her mouth. You are the one, she said, Nigerian accent rounding her words. Why are you here? To help, Cierra said. Help? The woman's laugh held no comedy. People like you help only when people like us have cameras. Cierra reached into her tote, pulled out sanitizer and tissues. What's your name, Ma? Alhaja Saad, the woman said, still defensive. Cierra unscrewed the sanitizer and held it out. May I clean your hands? You carry basket all day. The woman frowned, then extended her palms. Cierra squeezed a neat line, rubbed gently until the skin shone. The small act shifted something in the space, as if the air itself decided to give her one more try. Alhaja Saada's mouth softened. She said. You have small sense. They sat. The clinic hummed. A radio somewhere in the back played High Life Low like a heartbeat learning patience. When Amaka returned with a white bag that smelled like home, Cierra waited for the first bite before eating. The fish was too spicy, the way Lagos women cook when they want to make sure you remember your mouth. Where are your parents? Cierra asked gently. Mother sells second-hand clothes near Carter Bridge, Amaka said around a mouthful. Father went to Port Harcourt when I was 4. Grandma says oil work swallowed him. She says God will spit him back when he is ready. She lowered her voice. Grandma knows Mrs. Harper. She said Mrs. Harper once bought textbooks for girls at our church. She said God hides queens in wrappers. The words pricked Cierra behind the eyes. She looked away to steady herself, and that was when she saw him. The man from the SUV, Zeke, standing at the clinic doorway motioning. He didn't enter. He pointed toward the street with a subtle, urgent tilt. Trouble. 2 men with phones were hovering at the corner, pretending to buy suya from a grill that had not been lit. A third man wore a cheap press tag and the grin of someone who preferred smoke to fire. One lifted his handset, squinting, then whispering to the others, got her. Cierra inhaled, exhaled, pulled her mask higher. Zeke gave a small nod and vanished back into the street, to move shadows in her favor. The nurse returned. She's awake, she said softly. You can see her for a minute. At the bed, Mama Kemi's eyes opened to slits, then to more. Up close, Cierra could see a small scar across the woman's left eyebrow, the kind of mark you get from stubbornness meeting a sharp corner. The older woman studied Cierra as if flipping a page. I know you, she murmured, voice papery. Yes, Ma, Cierra said, throat tight. I came to say. People have been knowing you since morning, Mama Kemi said. Knowing you is not the same as knowing your mind. Her gaze shifted. Amaka? I'm here, Grandma, the girl whispered, appearing at her elbow, tiny hand on the sheet. Where are my oranges? The old woman's mouth twitched toward a smile that didn't reach far. In the basket, Amaka said. We will sell again. Good. The woman's eyes returned to Cierra. And you? I came to pay the bills, Cierra said, then caught herself and changed course. I came to sit with you. To listen. To ask how to make right what I made wrong. The woman's hand moved, slow as dawn, and found Cierra's fingers. Her skin was warm. Pick up what you dropped, she said. Then don't drop it again. Before Cierra could answer, the clinic doors banged. The cheap press tag, flanked by the two men with phones, pushed in like wind. There she is, he announced, voice loud enough to be its own headline. Miss Jacobs, care to explain why you assaulted a poor trader and then came here to stage a photo? Zeke materialized from nowhere, a wall in a tailored suit. This is a clinic, he said, voice ironed flat. Out. The men danced back but not out, phones raised. The nurse called for security like a prayer. Amaka pressed closer to her grandmother. The old woman's fingers tightened on Cierra's like a knotted thread. Then another set of footsteps, sure and measured, cut across the noise. A woman in a simple wrapper and clean flats stepped into the ward, headscarf tied without ceremony, eyes taking in everything. It was Jordan's mother. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. She looked at the bed, at Amaka, at the drip, at the men with their cameras, at Zeke, at Cierra still kneeling with her hand in an old woman's hand. Mrs. Harper's face did not soften, but something in it rearranged, the way a locked door checks its hinges. Everyone without a patient leave, she said calmly. Now. The men hesitated, then retreated under the force of her quiet. Zeke herded them with a glance. Silence returned in pieces, settling in corners first. Mrs. Harper approached the bed, touched Mama Kemi's shoulder with tenderness that made time look away. Abony, she murmured, a different name than the nurses had used, a name from years and secrets. You always find new ways to scare me. Abony. So they knew each other by more than charity events and school drives. The room shifted. We are not done, the press tag called from the hall, last spark defiant. Police are on their way. A report has been filed for assault. Sirens keened outside, thin and close. Cierra's stomach dropped through the floor. She thought of Jordan in the foyer, of portraits watching. She thought of her mother's sweeping hair in the salon, saving for the generator that never came. Mrs. Harper's eyes flicked to Cierra, then to the doorway. Stand up, she said not unkindly. Whatever comes, meet it on your feet. Boots on tile. Two officers entered, faces set to official. The taller one consulted a note. We're here for Miss Cierra Jacobs, he said. We have a complaint. You need to come with us for questioning. Amaka's hand found Cierra's. Don't go, the girl whispered, small and fierce. Cierra rose slowly. She turned to Mrs. Harper, to the woman she had hurt twice in one afternoon, once with a shoe, once with a headline. She searched for mercy and met a mirror. I'll go, Cierra said, voice steady because fear had no more space to grow. But not before I ask one question. The taller officer lifted his chin. Ask it at the station. Cierra kept her eyes on Mrs. Harper. Who filed the complaint? The officer checked his note again. Anonymous witness, he said. Signed as, a mother who won't be fooled. Every eye swung to Mrs. Harper. Her face did not change. Let her ask her question, Mrs. Harper said quietly. Then take her. Cierra swallowed. Was it you? She asked. Did you call the police on me? The sirens wailed again, impatient now, and the answer, whatever it was, hung between them like a blade waiting to drop. For a long, breathless second, the room held its own heartbeat. Mrs. Harper's silence was as sharp as any word. She looked from Cierra to the officer, then back again. The air was heavy with something that wasn't quite anger and wasn't quite regret, something older and colder, like judgment waiting for proof. Finally she spoke. Yes, she said. I called. The word struck harder than any slap could have. Cierra blinked, the sound echoing in her ears. You called the police on me? Mrs. Harper's tone was calm, almost detached. Not on you, Miss Jacobs. On what you did. You assaulted a woman in public and she collapsed. I gave the statement to make sure the truth would not be buried beneath wealth, influence, or tears. Jordan's mother turned to the officers. Do your job. Cierra's throat tightened. You could have talked to me. You could have. I did, Mrs. Harper interrupted. And you said sorry. But I've seen many sorries, sweet on the tongue, bitter in the heart. I want to see who you are when apology costs something. The taller officer stepped forward, hand hovering near his notebook. Madam, we just need her to come with us. Routine questioning. Amaka ran forward, wrapping her arms around Cierra's waist. Don't take her, she cried. She came to help. She cleaned the floor, she paid the bill, One of the nurses gently pulled the girl aside. The little one's sobs cracked the last thread of Cierra's composure. She bent down, brushing Amaka's tear-streaked cheek. "I'll be okay," she whispered. "Take care of Grandma for me." The officer cleared his throat. "Please, ma'am." Mrs. Harper watched, expression unreadable. As the officers led Cierra out through the corridor, whispers followed her like shadows, nurses pausing mid-step, a mother clutching her sick child, a cleaner crossing herself. Cameras blinked near the entrance, catching half-faces and questions. Outside, the air hit like a wall, hot, loud, unforgiving. The market across the street had found its rhythm again. People shouting, haggling, moving. A handful of bystanders recognized her instantly. "Ah, that's her. The one from the video. Fine girl but no heart. Money can't buy respect." Phones rose like weapons. Cierra lowered her head as the officers guided her into their van. Through the open door she caught one last glimpse, Mrs. Harper standing at the clinic entrance, arms crossed. Then Jordan's car screeched into view, stopping inches from the crowd. "Mom?" Jordan's voice boomed. "What have you done?" He rushed to Cierra's side before the officers could close the door. "Where are you taking her?" "Police station, sir," the officer replied, tense. "Formal complaint." Jordan turned on his mother, disbelief cutting through his voice. "You called the police on the woman I love?" Mrs. Harper's jaw set. "I called the police for the woman she hurt." "You could have handled this differently," he said. "You're humiliating her." "She humiliated herself the moment she chose cruelty," his mother said. "If you cannot see that, then maybe love has already blinded you." The crowd was swelling now, phones flashing, gossip feeding itself. Zeke stepped between them, voice low but firm. "Sir, this isn't safe. Cameras everywhere. Let's handle this inside." But Jordan didn't move. "I'm going with her." Mrs. Harper shook her head. "No, you won't. You will stay and learn that a man who wants peace must first understand justice." "Justice?" Jordan laughed bitterly. "You're not seeking justice, you're proving a point." "Maybe," she said softly. "But sometimes a point saves a life." The officers urged Cierra into the van. Her fingers trembled as the door shut. She caught Jordan's eyes through the window, pleading, helpless, angry, and something inside her cracked again. As the van pulled away, the city outside blurred. Billboards, Danfo buses, honking horns, everything looked distant, like scenes behind glass. In her lap, her phone buzzed, notifications exploding. Hashtag Market Queen, hashtag Heartless Fiancé, hashtag Justice for Mama Kemi, hashtags multiplying like fire. Cierra turned off the screen and closed her eyes. At the police station, the air smelled of heat and ink. Fans creaked lazily overhead. An officer behind the desk eyed her curiously. "You're the market lady, eh? The one trending." Cierra said nothing. Her mask was gone now, the stares found her freely. They made her sit on a wooden bench while papers shuffled and questions waited. She watched a mother pleading for her son's release, a young man arguing about missing money, a constable laughing at something on his phone. Time crawled. Finally, a senior officer appeared, Inspector Okoro, broad-shouldered, voice like gravel. He glanced through the report and then at Cierra. "You kicked an old woman?" "I panicked," she said. "She grabbed my wrist. I didn't mean to hurt her." He studied her for a moment, then leaned back. "And now you're here because her condition worsened." "But," he paused, lowering his tone, "I saw the video. It looks bad, but it doesn't tell everything. That's why I ask you myself, are you sorry because she's your fiancé's mother, or because you truly regret it?" Cierra met his eyes. "Because I hurt someone who didn't deserve it. No excuse changes that." Okoro grunted, tapping his pen. You speak well. I'll call the clinic for updates. If the woman doesn't press further charges, you'll go home. For now, stay calm." Evening crept in. Outside, thunder grumbled. The light changed from gold to gray. Then the door opened and Jordan walked in. He looked disheveled, tie loose, eyes dark from frustration. "I'm taking her home," he said, slamming papers on the desk. "The family of the victim already called, they're not pressing charges." Okoro frowned. "Not pressing charges? Who called?" "Mrs. Harper," Jordan said, his voice a mix of confusion and relief. "She just called the station herself. She said to release Cierra immediately." Cierra's heart stumbled. "What?" Okoro checked his phone, nodded once. "Confirmed. You're free to go." As they stepped outside, the rain began, soft, deliberate, cleansing. Cierra stopped at the station gate, looking up at the sky. Why did she change her mind? Jordan shook his head. I don't know. Maybe she saw something you did at the clinic. Maybe Mama Kemi told her something. But she said to bring you home. Said she wants to talk. Talk. Cierra echoed. After everything? She sounded different, Jordan said quietly. Tired. They drove in silence, Lagos blurring past in streaks of headlights and rain. When they reached the Harper mansion, the gates opened slowly, as if unsure whether to welcome or warn. Inside, Mrs. Harper sat in the living room, no wrapper this time, just a simple black dress and slippers. The chandelier light softened her features, but her eyes remained sharp. Cierra stood at the threshold, unsure whether to sit or kneel or speak first. Mrs. Harper motioned to a chair. Sit. Cierra obeyed, the weight of the day pressing down on her. You went to the clinic, Mrs. Harper began. You paid the bills, you cleaned the floor, you comforted that child. You did more than I expected. I wasn't trying to impress anyone, Cierra said quietly. I just wanted to make it right. That's what I needed to see, Mrs. Harper replied. When I called the police, I wanted to know if you'd stand tall when the world bent against you. You did. Cierra stared at her, disbelief mingling with exhaustion. You tested me? I tested your heart, Mrs. Harper said. Because this family's wealth attracts masks. I needed to know if you had one. Jordan stepped forward. Mom, that was too much. Maybe, she said. But love without truth is a coffin with flowers. I had to be sure. The rain drummed harder outside. Silence wrapped the room again, thick and fragile. Finally, Mrs. Harper sighed. Mama Kemi is awake. She's asking to see you. Cierra blinked. She remembers me? She does, Mrs. Harper said, her voice lower now. And she forgives you. But she also wants to tell you something you both need to hear. What is it? Cierra asked, heart pounding. Mrs. Harper looked out the window, eyes distant. She says there's a reason your paths crossed in that market. That your meeting wasn't an accident. Cierra frowned. What do you mean? Mrs. Harper turned back slowly, her expression unreadable. Because the woman you kicked isn't just a stranger or even a victim. She's tied to your past in a way you don't yet understand. Her words hung heavy in the air. Cierra's breath caught. Tied to my past? How? Mrs. Harper's gaze deepened. You'll know when you see her tomorrow. The following morning, Lagos woke under a pale, nervous sun. The rain had washed the streets clean, but in Cierra's heart, the storm still raged. She stood by the window of the guest room Mrs. Harper had assigned her, staring out at the wide gardens glistening with dew. Birds called in the distance, but their song only reminded her of the quiet that now existed between her and Jordan. He had barely spoken since last night. His mother's test had shaken him too. He couldn't decide whether to defend her or resent her. And Cierra couldn't decide whether to be grateful for being released, or angry that her humiliation had been part of someone's plan. She turned from the window when the door creaked open. It was Jordan, dressed in a crisp white shirt and blue trousers, eyes still tired but softer now. Mom wants to leave in 10 minutes, he said. We're visiting Mama Kemi at the clinic. Cierra nodded. Did she say why? She said it's time for you to know the truth. He hesitated. Cierra, before we go, I need to say something. She looked at him, waiting. When I saw that video online, he said slowly, I was angry. Not because of how it made you look, but because I thought it proved you weren't who I believed you were. But at the clinic, when I heard what you did, helping that little girl, paying the bills, cleaning the floor, I realized the woman I fell in love with isn't lost. She's still there. Just scared. Her eyes softened. Scared of what? He sighed. Scared of being seen as small again. I understand that feeling. We both climbed our way out of something. Sometimes, the higher you rise, the harder it becomes to look down with compassion. Cierra smiled faintly. You sound like your mother. He gave a half laugh. Don't curse me. For a brief, fragile moment, they both smiled. Two people standing at the edge of forgiveness but still uncertain of the ground. The ride to the clinic was quiet. Mrs. Harper sat in the front passenger seat, dressed in a dark green lace wrapper with a gold head tie. Her posture was straight, unshakable. Cierra sat in the back beside Jordan, fingers folded, heart pounding harder with every passing street. When they arrived, Amaka was outside the gate, waiting as if she had known they'd come. Her yellow dress had been washed, hanging damp against her knees. The moment she saw Cierra, her face broke into a cautious smile. You came back, the little girl said. Cierra knelt and hugged her. I promised I would. Mrs. Harper's voice floated behind them. Where's your grandmother? Inside, Ma, Amaka said. She said she has been waiting since dawn. The clinic seemed quieter today. No cameras, no whispers, only the hum of a generator and the soft footsteps of nurses moving about. They walked into the ward and there she was, Mama Kemi, sitting upright this time, her eyes sharp and clear. She smiled when she saw Cierra, her lips cracked but kind. So you came back, my daughter? Cierra hesitated at the word daughter. Yes, Ma. I wanted to thank you, and to ask for your forgiveness. Mama Kemi looked at her long and hard. Forgiveness? She shook her head. Child, forgiveness is not a gift you beg for. It is a seed you grow. Sit down. Cierra obeyed. Mrs. Harper took a chair too, while Jordan remained standing by the door. The old woman folded her arms over her wrapper. You remember the market, eh? Cierra nodded. Yes, Ma. Good. 'Cause I remember you too. Not from that day, but from many years ago. The room stilled. Even the ceiling fan seemed to slow. Cierra frowned. You remember me? Mama Kemi's voice softened, but her words were heavy. Your mother, does she still work at the salon near Carter Bridge? The one called Glory Hands. Cierra's eyes widened. Yes. How do you know that? Because I used to work there, the old woman said. Before my accident. Your mother was my apprentice. And you, Cierra, you were the little girl who used to sweep hair from the floor while we braided customers' hair. Cierra gasped. Her hands flew to her mouth. No, that's not possible. Mrs. Harper leaned forward. Ebony, what are you saying? I'm saying life has a way of folding back on itself, Mama Kemi said. Years ago when that salon caught fire, your mother ran out crying your name. You were still inside. I was the one who went back for you. Cierra's breath caught. Her mind flashed, heat, smoke, hands pulling her out through the broken window. A woman's arms holding her while her mother screamed. That was you? She whispered. Yes, Mama Kemi said, her eyes glistening. I carried you out, but I was burned. That's why I limped today. I lost my job, but I never blamed your mother. She tried to help me later, but pride wouldn't let me accept. The room went silent. Cierra's tears fell freely now, each one carving through her shame. Oh my God. I kicked the woman who once saved my life. Mrs. Harper looked stunned. Even Jordan had no words. I didn't know, Cierra said between sobs. I didn't know it was you. I was rushing. I was too busy to look, Mama Kemi said gently. That's what happens to all of us when we start running faster than our hearts. But maybe this is how God slows us down, to remind us where we came from. Cierra wiped her face, trembling. How can I ever make it right? Mama Kemi reached out, her palm rough but warm. By never forgetting that every face you pass has a story. Even the ones selling oranges on the ground. For a while no one spoke. The sunlight streaming through the window bathed them in quiet gold. Then Mrs. Harper cleared her throat softly. Ebony, why didn't you tell me sooner? Mama Kemi smiled faintly. Would you have believed me, Adeabi? Or would you have thought I was just another poor woman trying to twist fate? Mrs. Harper lowered her gaze. You're right. I might not have believed. Pride wears expensive clothes too. Cierra turned to Mrs. Harper. Ma, I don't know how to thank you for letting me face all this. Mrs. Harper looked at her thoughtfully. You've thanked me already by not running away. You faced your mistake. You walked back into the market you tried to leave behind. That's something money can't buy. Jordan placed a hand on Cierra's shoulder, pride flickering in his eyes. You've changed, Cierra. I can see it. She managed a small smile. Maybe I just remembered who I was before all the noise. Then, Amaka climbed onto the bed beside her grandmother, resting her head against the woman's arm. Grandma says every meeting is God's math, she said. He doesn't make mistakes. Mrs. Harper chuckled softly for the first time that day. That's wisdom beyond your years, little one. Mama Kemi laughed too, a sound that made the entire room lighter. She gets it from me. Hours later they left the clinic together, Mrs. Harper, Jordan, and Cierra walking behind the small figure of Amaka carrying her orange basket. The street was alive again with life, voices, and color, but now Cierra saw it differently. Every vendor, every old face, every barefoot child was no longer part of the blur, they were people with stories just like hers. At the car, Mrs. Harper stopped and turned to her. Cierra, I want you to understand something. I didn't test you to destroy you. I tested you because you were about to join a family that carries weight. My son needs a woman who can handle that weight with humility, not arrogance. I understand now, Cierra said, voice steady. and I'm grateful you did. Mrs. Harper smiled faintly. Good. Because humility isn't about lowering yourself, it's about raising others when they're down. She opened the car door then paused. But remember, tests don't always end when you pass them. Some just change their questions. Cierra nodded slowly. Then I'll be ready for the next one. That evening, back at the mansion, Jordan surprised her with a quiet dinner by the pool. The candles flickered, reflecting off the calm water. To second chances, he said, raising his glass. To growth, she replied, smiling. The sound of crickets filled the silence between them. For the first time in days, peace didn't feel like a visitor, it felt like home. But just as the night began to settle, Jordan's phone buzzed on the table. He picked it up, glanced at the screen, and his face changed. Cierra noticed instantly. What's wrong? He hesitated, then turned the phone toward her. On the screen was a message from an unknown number. It was a photo of Mrs. Harper in a car, looking pale, her head resting against the window. And below it a text message that read, "Your mother just collapsed. Bring Cierra. She must be here." Cierra's hand flew to her mouth. What? Who sent that? Jordan's eyes darkened. It's from the clinic. They said Mama Kemi asked for both of you. The night felt colder than it should have. Rain clouds gathered again, blotting out the moon as Jordan's car sped through the winding roads of Victoria Island toward the clinic. The air smelled of wet earth and tension. Every red light seemed to hold them hostage, every minute stretched thin with fear. Cierra sat still, hands trembling in her lap. She hadn't prayed properly in years, but now every breath was a prayer. Beside her, Jordan gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles went white. She was fine when we left, he muttered. How could she collapse again so soon? Cierra's mind raced back to the clinic, the way Mama Kemi had laughed softly, the sparkle in her tired eyes, the calmness in her voice when she forgave her. It didn't make sense. Maybe it's her blood pressure, she whispered. Maybe the excitement was too much. Mrs. Harper sat in the front seat, composed but silent. Her hands were clasped tightly on her lap. She didn't speak once, didn't blink much either, just stared straight ahead, her face carved in worry and guilt. When they finally arrived, the gate to New Dawn Community Care was wide open. 2 nurses stood outside whispering urgently. Jordan didn't wait for the car to stop before jumping out. Cierra followed, rain misting against her hair and shoulders as she ran after him. Inside the ward, the air was thick with disinfectant and panic. Mama Kemi lay on a bed, surrounded by doctors and nurses. Amaka stood by the corner, crying softly into her hands. A monitor beeped erratically, then flatlined for a few seconds before a nurse adjusted the cables. The sound snapped back into a weak rhythm. "Grandma!" Amaka cried, running to her. "Please wake up." Jordan froze at the sight. Mrs. Harper rushed forward, gripping Mama Kemi's hand. "Abony, can you hear me?" The old woman's eyelids fluttered open, and a faint smile ghosted across her lips. "Adeabi," she whispered, calling Mrs. Harper by her native name. "You came quickly." "I'm here," Mrs. Harper said, tears brimming in her eyes. "Please hold on." Mama Kemi's gaze shifted slowly toward Cierra. "And my impatient child, you came too." Cierra stepped closer, swallowing the lump in her throat. "Yes, Ma. I'm here. Please don't talk much." But the old woman chuckled weakly. "I must. God doesn't give time back, my daughter." The doctor gestured quietly to Mrs. Harper and Jordan. She asked to speak privately. "Don't stress her too long." They all gathered close. The rain outside grew heavier, drumming against the metal roof like a heartbeat losing its rhythm. Mama Kemi's eyes seemed to look past the room now, into memories only she could see. "There's something I didn't finish saying earlier," she said faintly. "Something you need to hear before I go." "No, Mama Kemi, please," Cierra whispered, kneeling beside her. "You're not going anywhere." The woman smiled. "I already went once, child, the day that salon burned. I came back because God said I wasn't finished yet." She turned her head toward Mrs. Harper. "Adeabi, you remember the woman who used to work for your foundation years ago? The one who ran away after her husband died?" Mrs. Harper frowned, thinking. "Yes, Grace Jacobs. That was Sierra's mother." Mama Kemi nodded slowly. "Then you know the truth I'm about to say is not madness." Cierra looked between them, confused. "What truth?" Mama Kemi's lips trembled. "Your mother wasn't just my apprentice, Cierra. She was also the one who saved me when my husband tried to kill me. That day I went missing for 2 weeks, she hid me." Jordan blinked. "What?" "She hid me in your family's old house," Mama Kemi continued, and risked her life to protect mine? That's why I was at the market the day you kicked me. I was looking for her. I heard she was ill. I wanted to find her before it was too late. Cierra's chest tightened. You were looking for my mom? Yes, child. Because I owe her my life. Just as you owe me yours. Fate circles us all. She coughed, her voice breaking. The doctor moved closer, but she raised her hand weakly. Let me finish. Mrs. Harper took her hand gently. Ebony, please rest. You've done enough. But Mama Kemi shook her head. No. There's one more truth, one more. Her eyes flicked to Mrs. Harper again. Do you remember your driver, Uche, from 20 years ago? Mrs. Harper hesitated. Yes, the one who disappeared suddenly. He didn't just disappear, Mama Kemi said, her voice thinning. He was my brother. Everyone froze. Mrs. Harper's lips parted, stunned. Your brother? Yes. He worked for you. And before he died, he told me something that would one day tie us together again. She looked straight at Cierra, her eyes gleaming through tears. He said, when you find her, you'll know her by her kindness and by the fire in her eyes. She will be the bridge between both worlds. I don't understand, Cierra whispered. Mama Kemi smiled faintly. Your mother saved me. You kicked me. And still you came back. It means the lesson came full circle. That's why I called you here, to tell you that pain isn't a punishment. It's preparation. Her breathing grew weaker. The monitor beeped slower. Adeabi, my sister, she said softly to Mrs. Harper. Take care of this child. Don't test her anymore. Life has already tested her enough. Mrs. Harper nodded through her tears, gripping the woman's hand. I promise. Then Mama Kemi turned to Cierra, eyes glistening one last time. My daughter, never run faster than your soul again. Let it walk beside you. Always. Her hand went limp. The monitor gave one long, flat tone. Doctor. Jordan shouted. The doctor pressed the stethoscope to her chest, then slowly straightened, his face solemn. She's gone. Amaka screamed. No. Grandma, no. She threw herself onto the bed, sobbing uncontrollably. Nurses rushed forward, pulling her gently away. Cierra collapsed to her knees, tears spilling freely, grief bursting out like something she'd kept locked for years. Mrs. Harper covered her face, silent but shaking. Jordan knelt beside Cierra, wrapping his arms around her. I'm so sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. Through her sobs, Cierra managed to speak. She saved me twice, and I couldn't even save her once. 2 days later, the small church by Oberland was filled with mourners. The funeral was simple, just a wooden coffin, fresh flowers, and a few close friends. Cierra paid for everything quietly, refusing any recognition. Mrs. Harper handled the arrangements for Amaka's schooling and living situation, promising to make her part of their family foundation. As the service ended, Cierra stood by the grave, rain misting over the new mound of red earth. She dropped a single orange into the grave, bright against the soil. Rest, Mama Kemi, she whispered. You taught me what no school ever could. Beside her, Mrs. Harper placed a hand on her shoulder. You honored her well, child. Cierra turned. She made me see what I had forgotten, to look with my heart, not just my eyes. Mrs. Harper smiled sadly. Then her death wasn't in vain. They stood in silence for a while, the sound of rain mingling with the soft murmur of prayers. When they turned to leave, Jordan reached for Cierra's hand. She hesitated for a moment, then held it. But as they approached the car, a man in a gray suit stepped out from behind the trees. He was tall, with a clean-shaven head and a leather folder tucked under his arm. He looked official, serious. Miss Jacobs, he called. Cierra blinked. Yes. He stepped closer, rain dripping off his coat. I'm Barrister Ease. I represent the late Mrs. Ebony Kemi. She left something for you. Mrs. Harper frowned. For her? The man nodded. Yes. A letter, and a document. She asked that it be delivered personally after her burial. He handed the sealed brown envelope to Cierra. Her hands trembled as she accepted it. Written across it in neat, shaky handwriting were the words, for the child who once swept hair and learned pride. For the woman who must now learn grace. She stared at it, heart thudding. What's inside? The lawyer smiled faintly. Open it when you're ready. She said the truth inside will change everything you thought you knew. As the car drove away from the cemetery, the envelope lay heavy in Cierra's lap, its corners damp from rain. Jordan reached for her hand. You okay? She nodded slowly. I don't know. But I need to read this. Mrs. Harper's gaze flicked toward the envelope, suspicion and curiosity dancing in her eyes. "Then read it here," she said softly. "We've all come too far to wait." Cierra took a deep breath, tore the seal and pulled out the folded letter. Her eyes widened at the first line. Her lips parted. And then, in a trembling whisper, she read aloud. "My dearest Cierra, if you are reading this, it means I have finally joined my brother. But before I go, you must know, your mother didn't just save my life. She saved something far more valuable, something that belongs to you." Cierra's heart stopped. What does she mean? Mrs. Harper leaned forward, tension in her voice. "Keep reading." Cierra's hands shook as she unfolded the second page, the rain tapping gently on the window. "Before the fire, I was keeping something safe for your mother, something your father left behind when he died. A document. A name. A legacy hidden from you all these years." She stopped reading, eyes wide. "What legacy?" Jordan asked urgently. Cierra looked up, her voice breaking. She says, "My father wasn't who I thought he was." Mrs. Harper froze. "What do you mean?" Cierra swallowed hard. "According to this letter, my father was her brother." Everyone gasped. The car screeched to a halt. The silence in the car was so thick it felt alive. Cierra's hands trembled as she clutched the letter, her breath catching between disbelief and panic. The world outside the car window blurred into streaks of rain and light. "My father was her brother?" she whispered again, almost to herself. Jordan blinked, stunned. "Wait, so you're saying Mama Kemi was your aunt?" Mrs. Harper's eyes narrowed, searching Cierra's face as if she could read the truth written beneath her skin. "Read everything," she said quietly. "Don't stop halfway." Cierra swallowed hard and unfolded the last page of the letter. "The man you called father was not your blood. Your mother, Grace Jacobs, loved him, but before that marriage she loved another, my brother Uche. He worked for Madame Adaobi Harper. They were young, foolish and poor. When he died in an accident during a delivery run, Grace was already carrying you. Out of shame and fear, she married a man who promised to raise you as his own. I kept Uche's letters and a deed that once belonged to the Harpers. It's yours now because you are the only living blood of my brother." Cierra's lips trembled. "It can't be true." Mrs. Harper went pale. "Uche? My driver Uche." Her voice shook. He worked for me. He was with me every day." Jordan frowned, glancing between them. "Mom, are you saying my mother knew her father?" Mrs. Harper pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. "Ah yes. Uche was my driver and house aide back when I was still married to your father. He disappeared one night after an argument with him. We were told he died in an accident on 3rd Mainland Bridge." Cierra's eyes filled with tears. "That means your husband, Jordan's father?" Mrs. Harper turned slowly, realization dawning like a storm. "May have been responsible for his death." A gasp escaped Cierra's throat. "What?" Mrs. Harper's voice was barely a whisper. "I never knew the details. There were rumors that he confronted your father about something that night, something about missing money from the staff account. But I always felt there was more to it." Jordan shook his head, disbelief flashing in his eyes. "You're saying my father might have killed her father?" No one spoke. The only sound was the rain hammering against the roof. Finally, Mrs. Harper exhaled shakily. "We need to go home. This isn't something we can discuss in a car." Back at the mansion, the storm had mellowed to a steady drizzle. The household staff lingered at a respectful distance as the three of them entered the living room. The fire in the hearth flickered, casting uneasy light across the polished floor. Mrs. Harper poured herself a glass of water, her hands still trembling. "Cierra," she said, "may I see the rest of the documents?" Cierra handed her the folded parchment tucked behind the letter. Mrs. Harper opened it slowly. It was old, browned at the edges, with faded ink that still bore Uche's signature. It was a land deed, registered in Mama Kemi's name but originally under Uche Okonkwo. The address printed on it made Mrs. Harper gasp. Jordan leaned over her shoulder. "What is it?" Mrs. Harper whispered. "It's the land this mansion is built on." Cierra froze. "What?" Mrs. Harper nodded slowly. "When my husband built this house, he told me he had bought the land from a small-time trader who wanted to sell quickly. He said it was a clean deal. But look, Uche's name was the original owner. That means he either stole it, or forced him to sell." Jordan stared at the document, shock giving way to anger. "So the house I grew up in, our home, was built on stolen land?" Cierra's heart pounded. "And that means, this land legally belongs to my family." The air thickened. The sound of the rain outside seemed to fade until all they could hear was the crackle of the fire. Mrs. Harper sat down slowly, her voice trembling. God forgive me. I lived here all these years, never knowing the foundation of this home was soaked in deceit. Cierra's mind spun. My mother must have known. That's why she never wanted to talk about my father. Maybe she was trying to protect me from this. Jordan stood by the window, his reflection fractured by raindrops. So if this letter is right, your father and my grandfather were enemies. Cierra nodded. And she hesitated. We fell in love across that line. Their eyes met, an unspoken ache passing between them. Mrs. Harper looked at both of them, torn between guilt and awe. You two were brought together by the very thing that once tore our families apart. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the wide windows of the Harper mansion, soft and almost forgiving. Cierra hadn't slept. She sat on the balcony wrapped in a shawl, watching the gardeners trim the hedges below. Every time she blinked, she saw Mama Kemi smile, heard her last words. Footsteps approached behind her. It was Mrs. Harper, wearing a plain white wrapper. She looked older today, no makeup, no jewelry, just truth and tiredness. May I sit? She asked. Cierra nodded. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Mrs. Harper sighed deeply. When I was your age, I thought life was a ladder. Climb high, stay polished, and never look down. But I was wrong. Looking down is how you remember where you came from. Cierra's eyes filled with tears. I never imagined my life could connect to yours like this. It's too much, Ma. Mrs. Harper reached for her hand gently. Maybe it's not a curse. Maybe it's healing, two families paying for the sins of one man, and finding forgiveness instead. Cierra turned her palm upward, holding the older woman's fingers tightly. Thank you, for believing me now. Mrs. Harper smiled faintly. You earned it, my dear. And about the land, don't worry. Whatever belongs to your father will be restored. We'll do it properly. Tears slipped down Cierra's face. You don't have to. I do, Mrs. Harper said firmly. Justice delayed is still justice owed. And Ebony would never forgive me if I didn't. They sat there in silence, the morning breeze drying their tears. Jordan joined them a few minutes later, holding 3 steaming mugs of tea. Peace offering, he said, handing one to each woman. Mrs. Harper smiled. Thank you, my son. He sat beside Cierra, their shoulders brushing. So, he said softly, does this make us enemies or family? Cierra laughed weakly. Maybe both. He grinned. Then we'll just have to prove love wins the rematch. Mrs. Harper looked at them, pride and tenderness in her eyes. Perhaps this was the lesson all along, that love, respect, and humility can rebuild even what arrogance destroyed. Cierra sipped her tea, staring out over the gardens. Mama Kemi always said every meeting is God's math. Maybe this was the equation he was solving. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the palm trees, Cierra walked alone to the small orange tree that grew behind the mansion. She carried a basket filled with fresh oranges from the market, the same kind Mama Kemi used to sell. She knelt, buried one in the soil near the roots and whispered, This is for you, Mama. Thank you for bringing me home even through pain. Behind her, Mrs. Harper's voice floated softly. She'd be proud of you. Cierra turned and smiled. I hope so. They stood there quietly, side by side, no longer mistress and guest, but 2 women bound by truth and redemption. The breeze rustled through the orange leaves. For the first time, Cierra felt peace. Real peace, not the kind that comes from status or pride, but the kind that grows only after forgiveness takes root. The next morning dawned bright, but the mansion felt unusually heavy, like it was holding its breath. Cierra woke early, restless from a dream that refused to fade. She had been walking barefoot through the market, oranges rolling at her feet, and every face that turned toward her was Mama Kemi's. Each one whispered the same words, There's still more you don't know. She tried to shake the feeling as she joined Mrs. Harper and Jordan for breakfast in the dining room. The air smelled of fried plantain and coffee, but no one touched their food. Jordan was scrolling through his phone, jaw tightening with every swipe. We're trending again, he said finally, placing the phone on the table. #Harper scandal. Someone leaked the letter. Cierra's stomach dropped. What? Yes, he said grimly. Somebody from the burial must have taken a photo. The post says, Billionaire's fiancé discovered mansion was built on stolen land. It's everywhere. Mrs. Harper exhaled slowly. Let them talk. The truth has already been buried too long. Let it breathe. Cierra shook her head. No, Ma. The internet doesn't breathe, it burns. They'll twist this into something ugly. Jordan reached across the table, his hand finding hers. We'll handle it together. Just then the butler, Mr. Glover, entered quietly. "Ma'am, there's someone here to see Miss Jacobs. Says it's urgent." Mrs. Harper frowned. "At this hour?" "Yes, ma." "He says it's about the letter." Cierra and Jordan exchanged a glance. "Send him in," Mrs. Harper said. Moments later, the visitor stepped in, a man in his late 40s dressed simply in a brown kaftan. His skin was weathered, his expression cautious but kind. He carried a leather satchel. "Good morning," he greeted respectfully. "My name is Samuel Okonkwo." Sierra's heart skipped. "Okonkwo?" "Yes," the man nodded. "Uche Okonkwo was my father." "Which means?" "I'm your cousin." The room went still. He opened his satchel and drew out another folded envelope. "This was meant to reach you after Mama Kemi's death, but I only found you after seeing the news online." Mrs. Harper gestured for him to sit. "Please, go on." Samuel nodded and handed the envelope to Sierra. "This letter is from my late father, Uche. He wrote it before he died. Mama Kemi kept it hidden all these years." Sierra's hands shook as she broke the seal. The handwriting was neat, deliberate, and old-fashioned. She began to read aloud. "My beloved Grace. If you ever read this, it means I am gone. I wanted to leave this world clean, but I cannot. I discovered something at the Harper estate, something that would destroy lives if revealed too soon. The money missing from the foundation was not stolen by me. I took the blame because I loved Adeobi more than I should have. She was my employer, but I couldn't stop my heart. When her husband found out, he threatened to ruin us both. He forced me to sign over my land to him. That night I ran, but his men followed. If I don't make it home, know that I did it to protect her." Sierra stopped reading, her voice trembling. Mrs. Harper's face had gone pale. "No," she whispered. "That can't be true." But Samuel spoke gently. "Madam, it's all here. My father confessed that the accident on the bridge wasn't an accident. He was chased. He fell into the water trying to escape." Jordan looked at his mother, disbelief in his eyes. "Mom, is this true?" Tears welled in Mrs. Harper's eyes. I didn't know. God, I didn't know he loved me. I always thought he stole from us. My husband told me so. And when Uche disappeared, I believed it." Sierra folded the letter carefully, her chest tight. "That means he died protecting you, Ma?" Mrs. Harper covered her mouth with both hands. "He died because of me." Samuel leaned forward gently. "He wanted you to know that his love wasn't your sin, it was his choice. He said if ever his daughter crossed your path, she would be your redemption, not your punishment." The words hit like a wave. Mrs. Harper looked up at Sierra, tears spilling freely. "All this time, I tested you, doubted you, punished you, and you are the reason I was given a second chance at peace." Sierra rose, tears streaming down her cheeks. She walked to Mrs. Harper, knelt, and took her hand. "Please, Ma, don't cry. None of us knew. But maybe this is why our paths crossed, to heal what was broken between our parents." Mrs. Harper sobbed openly now, pulling Sierra into her arms. "You are not my enemy, child. You are my blood's forgiveness." Jordan watched them, emotion flickering across his face, relief, sorrow, pride. "Maybe it's time to tell the truth publicly," he said. "No more secrets. The Harper's wealth was built on a lie, and now it's time we build our legacy on honesty." Mrs. Harper nodded, wiping her tears. "You're right. I'll call a press conference. We'll confess everything, the land, the letter, and the truth about Uche." Sierra hesitated. "Are you sure? The world won't be kind." Mrs. Harper smiled faintly. "The world was never kind. But truth is the only wealth I can leave behind now." 2 days later, the Harper Mansion's courtyard was filled with reporters and cameras. The golden Harper logo gleamed on the gate, but this time, it stood for something new: accountability. Mrs. Harper, regal yet humble, stood before the microphones. Jordan stood beside her and Sierra just behind them. "Good afternoon," Mrs. Harper began, her voice steady but soft. "My name is Adeobi Harper. Many of you know me as the founder of Harper Foundation. But today I stand not as a philanthropist, but as a woman asking for forgiveness." The crowd hushed. She told the story from the beginning: the driver named Uche, the stolen land, the cover-up, and the rediscovery of truth through his daughter. She spoke of Sierra with pride, not pity. Cameras flashed. Journalists scribbled. When she finished, she bowed her head and said, "We will return the land to its rightful heir. The Harper family home will now serve as a public education and empowerment center for women and children in honor of Uche Okonkwo and Abeni Kemi." Sierra stepped forward. "And I will stand beside her to make it happen. Because forgiveness isn't weakness, it's wisdom." The crowd erupted in applause. Later that evening, as the sun sank over Lagos Lagoon, Cierra stood by the balcony again. This time not in shame but in peace. Jordan joined her, wrapping an arm around her shoulder. "Do you realize what you just did?" he said softly. "You changed the Harper legacy forever." She smiled. "Maybe. But really, I just finished what our parents started. Love destroyed them, but maybe love also restored us." He turned her to face him, eyes warm. "So where do we go from here?" Cierra looked out over the golden skyline, wind tugging at her braids. "Wherever truth leads," she said. "And wherever it goes, we'll walk together." He smiled. "That's all I need to hear." And for the first time since that day in the market, Cierra felt whole, not because her story was perfect but because it was finally honest. The following week, the Harper mansion no longer looked the same. The golden gates were open to the public now, no longer a fortress of privilege but a place of learning. The marble floors that once echoed with silence were filled with voices of young women registering for free scholarship programs, donated sewing machines, and stacks of new textbooks. Cierra stood in the middle of the courtyard, watching the transformation. The banner overhead read, "The Uche Okonkwo Center for Hope and Empowerment." A name that once carried shame now stood tall, carved in gold on the mansion's walls. The air smelled of fresh paint and new beginnings. She smiled faintly as a group of girls in bright ochre uniforms laughed while helping one another hang decorations. The scene reminded her of herself years ago, young, eager, hungry for opportunity. Mrs. Harper approached from behind, dressed in a cream lace blouse and head tie. She carried herself with the quiet dignity of a woman who had finally made peace with her past. "You did well, Cierra," she said, her voice gentle. "Everything is ready for the opening ceremony. Your mother would be proud." Cierra turned, smiling. "So would yours." They stood side by side, watching the workers bustle about. "It feels strange," Mrs. Harper said softly. "This house used to symbolize power. Now it stands for healing." Cierra nodded. "That's what Mama Kemi wanted, to turn pain into purpose." Just then Jordan's voice echoed from across the courtyard. "Everyone. 10 minutes till the press arrives." He was in jeans and a simple white shirt, sleeves rolled up, clipboard in hand. Cierra couldn't help but smile as she watched him direct the crew with calm confidence. The last few weeks had changed him too. He was humbler now, less concerned about image, more about meaning. When he noticed her watching, he grinned. "Don't just stand there, Miss Director. Come save me from these microphones." Cierra laughed and walked over. "You're the one who wanted a full press event. I told you it's better to keep it small." He teased, "And deny the world a chance to see you rebuild an empire?" She rolled her eyes. "This isn't about me, Jordan." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "It's about both of us. About what love can fix when pride gets out of the way." She held his gaze, smiling. "You're starting to sound like your mother. Maybe that's not a bad thing anymore." Before Cierra could respond, Mrs. Harper called out from behind them, "Both of you come here. There's something I need to say before this day begins." They followed her into the main hall, the same hall where months ago Cierra had been told to leave the house in shame. The chandeliers sparkled above, reflecting off the polished tiles. Mrs. Harper stood in the center, facing them. "Cierra," she began slowly, "before this building becomes public property, I want to do something symbolic. Something that belongs to you." Cierra frowned. "To me?" Mrs. Harper handed her a small velvet box. "Open it." Inside was a single gold key with the initials CJ engraved on it. "This was Uche's original key to the property," Mrs. Harper said softly. "When my husband took the land, he kept the key as a trophy. I found it in his old study. It belongs with his bloodline now, with you." Cierra's throat tightened. She held the key like it was sacred. "Ma, I don't know what to say." Mrs. Harper smiled. "Say nothing. Just promise me one thing, don't let bitterness ever build another wall between us. If this house now opens its doors to others, make sure your heart stays open too." Tears welled in Cierra's eyes. "I promise." Jordan placed an arm around her shoulders, proud and tender. "She means it, Mom." Mrs. Harper nodded, smiling through her tears. "Then I can rest easy." The ceremony began soon after. The press gathered, flashes popping, cameras recording every moment. Mrs. Harper spoke first, her speech elegant yet heartfelt. She told the story of the mansion's dark history, how greed had built its walls, and how truth had set it free. Then she invited Cierra to the podium. Cierra hesitated for a moment, scanning the faces. Reporters, children, mothers, vendors, students, all gathered to witness something greater than a redemption story. Many of you know me as the woman from that viral video, she began, her voice calm but strong. The one who kicked an elderly woman in a market. Yes, that was me. But what most of you don't know is that the woman I hurt saved my life as a child, and her forgiveness saved my soul as an adult. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Cameras zoomed in. She continued, we live in a world where pride makes us forget our roots. But I stand here today to tell you, never let success make you blind. The people you look down on might one day be the hands that lift you up. Applause erupted. Cierra smiled faintly. This center is not just a building. It's proof that forgiveness is stronger than shame and that love, real love, never dies. Thank you. As she stepped away, Jordan joined her at the podium. He took her hand, raising it high for everyone to see. Ladies and gentlemen, he said proudly, this is the woman who turned my family's curse into a blessing. The crowd roared. Even Mrs. Harper clapped with tears in her eyes. That evening, when the guests had gone and the mansion was quiet again, the three of them sat together on the balcony overlooking the city lights. Jordan leaned back, smiling. You realize this is where it all started? This balcony. You crying, me confused, Mom furious. Cierra laughed. Don't remind me. Mrs. Harper chuckled softly. It's good to remember. It keeps us humble. They sat in companionable silence for a while, the cool night breeze brushing their faces. Then Cierra turned to Mrs. Harper. Ma, may I ask something? Of course, dear. Cierra hesitated. If Uche was my father, and your husband was responsible for his death, how do you really see me? As your son's fiancé, or as a reminder of your husband's sin? The question lingered in the air. Mrs. Harper turned, her eyes glistening under the moonlight. She reached out and took Cierra's hand. My child, she said softly, you are not your father's sin and Jordan is not his father's crime. You both are proof that grace can be born from guilt. Cierra's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were warm. Thank you, Ma. Mrs. Harper smiled. No. Thank you, for teaching me to see people, not status. Jordan stood, pulling Cierra to her feet. Come on, future Mrs. Harper, he teased. You're about to be late for your own engagement celebration. She blinked. My what? Mrs. Harper grinned mischievously. You didn't think we'd let this day end without something joyful, did you? Jordan dropped to one knee right there on the balcony, moonlight glinting off the ring in his hand. Cierra Jacobs Okonkwo, he said, smiling up at her, will you marry me, not to erase the past but to build a better future with me? Cierra gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Tears spilled freely as she nodded. Yes. 1,000 times yes. Cheers erupted below from the staff who had been secretly watching from the garden. Mrs. Harper laughed through her tears, clapping her hands. Jordan stood and slipped the ring onto her finger, pulling her into a tight embrace. In the distance, thunder rumbled softly, not as a threat this time, but as a promise that storms too can cleanse. Months later, the mansion officially became a learning center for underprivileged women. The Harper Foundation and Cierra's new Grace and Hope initiative partnered to provide skills training and scholarships across Lagos. And every morning before the center opened, Cierra walked to the orange tree behind the mansion, the one she had planted in memory of Mama Kemi. She'd stand there a moment, touching the leaves, whispering a prayer of gratitude. On its branches now hung hundreds of bright fruits, each one a silent reminder of the woman who taught her that humility and kindness never go out of season. As the children's laughter filled the courtyard once again, Cierra looked up at the sky and smiled. Thank you, Mama Kemi, she whispered. You gave me my life twice. And for the first time in her life, she truly understood what it meant to walk beside her soul.